Hello everyone and welcome back guys to episode 32 of the Unnamed Motorsport podcast, where today Jamie and I are back with quite possibly the hardest podcast we're going to have to do, the hardest podcast until next weekend I would have thought, to have to do all season long. Yes, today we're here back to review whatever that was, the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix from Jeddah. But before we get into that though, Jamie, how are you doing, mate? Anything exciting happening in your world since the last podcast?
Various things. Quite fun. My car got slashed its tyres.
We found that out last week. We didn't find that out last week.
Oh yeah, I forgot that was between the two things. I just associate them in my mind now.
Yeah, just vehicle crime is...
Yeah.
I mean, Manchester is basically the purge, isn't it, if I'm not mistaken?
Well, I've lived here for 3.5 years and had no problems until the last week, so that's quite fun. But yeah, we're here. I was quite happy with the end result because it could have been a lot worse.
What, Jeddah or your bicycle?
Yeah, Jeddah.
Okay.
No, I don't have a bike yet. My bike is pretty terrible, but yeah. Jeddah was an interesting race to say the least, but yeah.
Yeah, interesting I think is going to be the diplomatic way we put it first of all. But of course... Moving into the weekend, there was immediately a bit of controversy, wasn't there? Obviously, questions about track safety in the build-up to the weekend are always going to be there. I mean, you get that around a fair few circuits nowadays, don't you? I know Baku was very much the same back in 2016. Of course, probably the track Jeddah is most similar to, all things considered.
Yeah, I would say that. Also, well, if Hanoi got done, it's basically just Hanoi again.
It was basically, just Hanoi 2.0, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But of course, Jeddah though managed to get all assembled. It got approved on Wednesday, didn't it, or something ridiculous? And through I think was every F2 session delayed for one reason or another.
At least 3 out of 4 were.
I was going to say because I know the 2 races I watched were.
Yeah, practice definitely was.
Yeah, practice definitely was.
I don't think quali was. I don't think the first sprint was. So yeah.
Right. Okay. Can we quickly as well mention just how good, new Formula 1 driver Guan Yu Zhou did this weekend in F2?
It doesn't matter. He's got his future secured.
Fred Vasseur must be looking at that going, what on earth have I done?
He's probably looking at his bank account.
What have I done? Well, I'm sure he's looking at that as well, going, look at my Yan, but still. It's just painful.
We saw it when Nick de Vries won the championship easily, then had his future secured. The last race that season, he came 15th when he'd been winning every other race. So, yeah.
That's how you're justifying it, is it? Guan Yu Zhou's checked out.
If I got a job next year, I'd give up on my degree. That's
You genuinely don't think you'll get a job next year?
Well, we hope so.
It worries me now, Jamie, why you're taking a degree.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, so, I mean, Jeddah got all sorted just about in the nick of time, it's safe to say. Friday practice was fairly uneventful, apart from, obviously, Charles Leclerc's big shutdown at turn 21, wasn't it?
Typical Leclerc, really.
Typical, Leclerc street circuit, every lap is banzai. And actually, to be fair, we say that, didn't do horrendously in the race. But, I mean, we'll talk about that as well in just a moment. So, of course, we move into qualifying then. Really just sort of 3 talking points, wasn't it, from qualifying? And I mean, we've got a lot to get through into the race. We're going to rattle through pretty much everything else fairly quickly here. Aston Martin, behind Williams, absolutely woeful.
They were literally the second slowest, weren't they?
In qualifying, terrible. 17th and 18th. Now, don't get me wrong, I think they've still got a faster car than Williams on the whole. I just don't believe either of their drivers are particularly good qualifiers.
Well, it's a driver's circuit, isn't it? So Latifi and Russell are going to be better than Vettel and Stroll. So.
Yep. 2 Canadian frauds versus the future world champion versus the has-been. Lovely times. I'm sure I'll get some sort of hate in the comments for that one. Carlos Sainz then in Q2 was lucky to avoid damage, or more damage than he got, obviously, with that huge spin.
Yeah, and then on the second attempt, he was lucky to avoid a hospital trip.
Yes, because he basically did the same thing.
Mad.
Yeah, he basically did the same thing twice there, which was not ideal. And obviously, after Leclerc's issues Friday, you started to wonder whether the Ferrari's rear wing was kind of illusion this weekend or something like that. Of course, like you tend to... it worries me that we have to discuss this basically every weekend, isn't it? But of course, traffic again was an issue on qualifying runs. Of course, Max Verstappen at the end of Q1 obviously didn't make any difference. But of course, Max Verstappen got really held up at the end of Q1. It did cost Stroll, if I remember correctly. He
And it
might
cost
just
him
have...
to Mazepin. That's
Great.
actually true.
Yeah, yeah, and
He was a
gonna
second off
qualify
Mick.
last.
He was going to be about 7/10 off Mick.
Wow. That's almost.
But yeah, it's they put in this legislation or this guidance at the minimum lap time that you got to do, and it's just because it's just guidance. They just all ignore it. It's like actually make it a rule, and maybe they'll follow it.
Well, the problem is, isn't it? If everyone just then goes really quickly around the first half lap and then just dawdles around the second.
Yeah, which is basically what they did, isn't it?
And the thing, I know we've said this before, haven't we? They're only going to change it when there is a huge crash, which it's a miracle it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, the Hamilton and Mazepin one, was it in practice, that one?
That was practice, yeah.
That could have been horrific.
That could have been a bad crash as well, yeah. I think the worst, or what potentially could have been the worst we've still seen in recent years was Gasly with Hartley.
Oh,
if I remember correctly, back at Baku.
Into a concrete wall at the outside as well.
Yeah, that could have been...
That would have been bad.
Really bad. But I personally, I'm all for one-shot qualifying coming back. Do one-shot quali, reverse championship order, I reckon. So if you're lower down in the championship, you've got a slightly better track. Just to try and even it out a little bit.
People wouldn't like... If it started raining halfway through, then people would complain.
That's the way the cookie crumbles. Remember, Giancarlo Fisichella, 2005, took pole by like 3 seconds because of that.
Yeah, what a go.
Aggregate qualifying.
Which way did I get to go? Oh, wrong way. There he is.
Jamie doesn't know his left from his right.
It's so confusing in a camera, though.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I'll allow it this time. But of course, the big talking point from qualifying. Lewis Hamilton goes fastest on the final runs. Max Verstappen, he's a 10th up in Q1. He's 2/10 up in Sector 1, sorry. He's 2/10 up in Sector 2. And Jamie, what does he do? Talk me through Sector 3.
It was a pretty rough mistake. I can see like people saying, oh, he should just back off. He's got 3/10. Like Sector 3 was clearly the Mercedes' best sector because it's just a massive straight and one corner.
He was 3/10 up on his own delta, don't forget.
Yeah. So he has no idea what that's relative to Hamilton's lap time.
He had been informed
I can see why,
as to how far Hamilton was
he'd been informed
ahead.
Hamilton was on pole. But like
he'd been told the gap.
Yeah, but for all he knows, the Red Bull might be a 10.5 slower, so he can't just back off at the last corner and play it safe because he might not get pole, and that's just not what racing drivers do. So I can see why he still went for it, but yeah, it was a bad error to do that lockup. I think the worst thing was not accepting it and then putting it in the wall because he could have once you've locked up, just bail out of it completely. But obviously it's the last lap in quali, you're not going to do that either. So it was a bad mistake. Probably the first major individual error he's done all year.
By himself?
So you're going to disagree with that?
No, I'm genuinely just trying to think. He certainly hasn't made many by himself this year, but that's normally because if he's going to have an accident, he does it with someone else.
Yeah, or forces them to decide to have a crash or not.
Exactly.
But yeah, it was a shame, but I was disappointed on Saturday night, and then I was really happy when the first red flag came out, but then lots of other things happened as well.
I was going to say, you're jumping ahead a bit there.
Third place on the grid. Mercedes haven't had that many front row lockouts this season, but Bottas did decent.
2, is it, or 3, I want to say?
Yeah, they've definitely not had a 1-2 in the race, though only McLaren have.
Yes, exactly. Exactly, and I don't think that record's going to change.
No.
This year. Yeah, and I mean, let's be fair. As bad an error it was from Max at this time of the year, and you can talk all about how he's not feeling the pressure, and he keeps talking about it. He spends a lot of time telling people he's not feeling the pressure, and then spends a lot of he spends a lot of time in the car, seemingly starting to crack under pressure. Yeah,
yeah, that was the first moment we saw. Everything on Twitter was like, "Oh, that's his China 2007." It's like, shut up. But yeah, it's the first time you kind of see that.
I think Brazil was another showing of that, to be honest.
Were the race, you mean?
Yeah.
I think he would have done that regardless. I don't think the championship had anything to do with that. Maybe if it wasn't Hamilton, he wouldn't have done. But like, that wasn't a mistake because he knew what he was doing. He wasn't locked up. He wasn't going for it stupidly. It was just a calculated, we're either going to crash or I'm going to take back the lead, which I don't agree is right. But I think he knows what he was doing, and the difference between that and the mistake is it's unintentional.
Right. Okay. So anyway, we get our top 3 then. Lewis Hamilton ahead of Valtteri Bottas with Max Verstappen hiding in P3. Of course, then, we roll on to Sunday. We see a horrendous crash in the F2 feature race. Luckily, it's been confirmed, of course, now that Teo Porcher and Enzo Fittipaldi are both in... they're in an okay position, aren't they, now? I don't know if you saw earlier on, Enzo posted on Instagram, you know, he's a bit beaten up, as you'd expect, from a 72G crash.
Yeah, I doubt he'll do a race in Abu Dhabi next week.
Yeah, no, he's broken his heel.
There's no way he's back. Stable.
Yes, yeah. And obviously, we wish both of them a speedy recovery, of course. Teo Porcher's been unlucky this year with injuries.
Yeah, he's been very, very unlucky. Though he does get himself in a lot of crashes, to be fair.
It's not that bad for getting... No, I mean, that one... that one was, you could argue, was not really his fault. It wasn't massively. He was unlucky.
But then he did... he also binned it by himself in the first sprint as well.
I didn't get to watch the first sprint properly. I was trying to remember that then, but I was at work. So I must have missed that one.
He did a Schumacher.
Oh, did it? Yes. No, I think I might have seen something about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so of course we get to the start then of the race. First time round, rather surprisingly, pretty much a very clean start for the most part, wasn't it? I think the only near thing we had was Perez almost murdered Max
into turn one. Honestly, that was so bad. Perez, imagine the scenes, it would have been so funny but so horrendous if Perez had just spun Max out at turn one, but luckily not.
Yeah, it would not have been ideal for Perez, and I think he probably wouldn't have had any. I don't think he would have been allowed at Red Bull for the finale. I think they'd be that sort of extreme with punishment.
Get Gasly in.
Oh no, who's the other guy in? Oh, Tsunoda in it. God, that's bad. I forgot who Tsunoda was.
Who's the other guy?
I forgot who Tsunoda
was. F1 YouTuber, everyone.
Exactly, yeah. I don't know, bless him. I kept thinking Albon, and I thought, that's not right. And then I thought Hartley after we mentioned him earlier, and I got all thrown off. But yeah, Perez almost kills Max off the start. Apart from that, though, the start pretty uneventful. Everyone just kind of spreads out early on. I think
as we expected, basically.
Yeah, no one really sort of expected. Obviously, no one really wants to take a risk in the dirty air, things like that. Until we get to lap 10, where Mick Schumacher, in one slippery boy, decides to do his best Nelson Piquet impression. And yes, that is a joke.
It did make me laugh. Had it been a normal race from lap 10 onwards and Verstappen won, it would have been handed to him by Schumacher, which is very ironic. But yeah, complete mistake on his part. We've seen him do it a lot. I mean, obviously the Haas is an absolute dog to drive.
Yeah, it looked horrendous on the onboard.
But like, he does it an awful lot, just binning himself into the wall.
Yes,
so hopefully he works on that.
Yeah, and I think with a more stable car, obviously that will come in time as well. Because again, when you got a car like that, you just don't know what it's going to do. And obviously Mick binned it. Obviously pretty much the same crash as Charles Leclerc had Friday night, wasn't it? Really. So it's something about whether it's something to do with the Ferrari engine configuration. Academies. Well, yeah, Ferrari Driver Academy as well. You've got all of the Arthur Leclerc energy.
Armstrong did it in F2 as well. Another one.
Yeah, he did, didn't he? Actually, that's what is it with Ferrari drivers in turn 21?
They're just a bit kamikaze. That's why.
Well, yeah, a lot of them are, to be fair. But of course, the safety car then gets deployed, even though it's very clear immediately it's going to need a red flag to get that barrier.
I don't think it was that clear. I was surprised when he put a red flag out.
Oh no, I'm sorry. You see how much the Haas has moved that barrier very easily. If it was going to be a red flag, you could have called that immediately.
Yeah, and they are going to be should have done. But Red Bull read the situation incredibly well, I thought.
Well, it's 50-50, isn't it?
I guess, yeah, if there was no red flag, then they're a bit screwed. But it was worth the risk because they were third anyway. So, yeah, Verstappen takes the lead. Bottas also is a massive pleb on the way into the pits.
Completely within the rules.
He got a penalty, didn't he?
Nope. Completely within the rules.
I thought he got a penalty. I mean, it is within the rules. Because I remember Hamilton's done it in the past, but he was doing it in the pit lane, which did get a penalty.
Yes. And I to be honest, I think
on track you are allowed.
From what I read as well, it's not a penalty because Max didn't pit. I think was something I read. I mean, don't get me wrong, wildly cheeky from Valtteri Bottas to even attempt that. Yeah. But apparently, I think because Max didn't pit, it didn't warrant a penalty. I can't remember exactly, but yeah, it was.
I guess they didn't have a lasting advantage, is what they often say, because Max took the lead anyway.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Maybe. Exactly. So obviously then lap 14 the red flag lap 13 even the red flag then gets called, so of course Max then gets a free pit stop. The race is set to restart lap 14 after about a 20-minute wait there or thereabouts.
I don't know, I didn't watch from that point onwards. So
Yeah, so we've obviously then got Max on... He's gone on to hards. Obviously, Hamilton's got hards that have done 3 laps behind a safety car. Safety car restart. Hamilton jumps Max straight away down in towards turn 1.
Not a good start.
Flies past him. Max then completely misses turn 1 and rejoins...
He throws it around the outside. He attempts to make it.
He was never going to make that corner with the speed he had, whether Hamilton was there or not.
No.
Like, he knows what he's doing in that moment, and then just rejoins at a 90-degree angle to the track halfway through turn 2 and causes an almighty backlog behind him.
Well...
You're
saying, like, what other choice does he have?
You
other than to rejoin
don't
the track
do that
like
at turn 1 in the first place and understand you've lost the position, or you cut over and then let Lewis have the place back. Again, we've seen it a couple of times this year where Max has gone into a position like that, and like you said a minute ago, where he goes, either you move out the way or we crash.
Yeah, which is a problem, a wider problem with the FIA, I think, because they've let him get away with that for so long. That now
Notice
he just basically runs the show.
He's the only one consistently doing it still.
Nah, Leclerc does it all the time.
When was the last time you remember Leclerc doing it?
We see it with Verstappen more because he has more reason to do it. Any of the young drivers, if Norris, if Leclerc were in a title fight, they would do it all the time.
I'm not... Leclerc, yeah. Norris, I'm not so convinced.
That's just how the young drivers race. That's why watching Alonso and Raikkonen battle is so much better than watching...
Well, I mean, we watched Kimi and Seb have a brilliant battle, didn't we, the weekend? That was wonderful. Yeah. The old drivers proving that. They just crashed into each other through turn 4. It was painful.
Oh, great.
It was painful, honestly.
It wasn't in the highlights, so I didn't see it.
Yeah, he didn't even make the highlights. That's just how painful it was. But
yeah, the young drivers just generally don't leave space because the FIA allowed Verstappen to come into F1 in 2015 and do what he wanted.
Yes,
so
yeah.
And it's their comeuppance from that.
It's dangerous at the end of the day.
It will lead to crashes like we saw.
Yes, and obviously throughout all that carnage then, that again, Max kind of caused through just the absolute backlog of cars behind him, obviously trying to get through turn 1 and turn 2.
And Bottas almost killed Verstappen, by the way. We didn't talk about that.
Bottas did, yeah, and people were trying to claim that's what made Max run deep into turn 1, when there is absolutely
Verstappen
no
was
chance.
braking already.
Yeah, Max was already on the brakes and was never going to make the corner whether Bottas was there or not. He didn't let off the brakes to avoid Bottas. Yeah. He just was doing exactly what he intended to do.
That would have been a Mercedes masterclass if Bottas had done a Hungary on him.
Yeah. But yeah, throughout all that carnage, though, Ocon suddenly sneaks into P2. Perez and Leclerc get involved in a bit of unlucky crash, to be honest. I saw Leclerc
it was
taking a lot of the blame for that. There was nothing he could have done in that situation.
No, not at all. Was he taking blame himself or people blaming him?
People were blaming him for that one.
Oh, well, that's just because he's Leclerc, isn't it?
Well, yeah, to a certain degree. But yeah, I mean, if he backs out, he takes out Perez's rear tyre. If he stays the foot to the floor, he just hopes that they somehow both make it through. That's all he could have done.
And Perez had a car on the outside as well, so he couldn't leave any.
Yeah, who was on the outside of Perez?
So, I don't know. Maybe
was it
McLaren?
Bottas?
I can't remember.
Oh, no, Bottas might have been just in front of him still. So obviously, Perez and Leclerc come together. Mazepin and George Russell are kind of left with nowhere to go. I'm surprised I didn't see more.
That was a bad crash from Mazepin's point of view.
It was a big shunt, wasn't it, for him?
Yeah.
But again, there was nothing he could have done in that situation. I'm more than happy to give Mazepin stick when he deserves it, but there he was just unlucky. Like, there's no arguing against that. Yeah. So we get another red flag, and we're still only 15 laps in, remember, at this point. And we're already 2 red flags down after basically no racing throughout the first 10 laps, and then whatever that was on the restart. Whilst this is all going on, Michael Massey, out of nowhere, goes to Red Bull. First of all, I completely understand why Red Bull were confused, because he said completely the wrong thing. How on earth he got that muddled up? Apparently he didn't notice Ocon had got through, because he basically went to Red Bull going, we will let you start behind Lewis, and it won't be investigated.
Yeah. Which, I don't like the management of... But the people got to remember, the FIA broadcast radio thing has only been a thing this year, so I'm positive this has always been happening. Like, we see it... I'll give you an example, which actually I know for a fact really did happen. Monaco 2013, Perez sent it on Alonso at the hairpin. Alonso had to jump the chicane, so Perez deserved the place.
Sorry, what?
And then before Alonso, so Perez sent it at the Noval chicane.
Okay, sorry, you said hairpin first.
Sorry,
I don't remember that.
The Noval.
Yeah.
No, Perez sent it, fair move, got it slowed down. Alonso jumped the corner, had to go back, and then before he could give it back, there was a red flag because Maldonado and someone else had a massive crash.
Yeah.
Shock. And then, literally,
Maldonado
as they restarted the
Charles
race,
Peak, if I remember correctly.
I think it was a Virgin or a Marussia, yeah.
It was a Marussia. Sure. Was it Charles Peak or was it Max Chilton?
It would have been Jules Bianchi, I think.
No, I don't think it was Jules, because Jules... No, that was the next year Jules scored points, wasn't it? Might have been Jules. I can't remember.
It might have been Jules. We don't know. But anyway, before they restarted the race, like the FIA or whoever was, I guess it was Charlie Whiting at that point as well, got on the phone to Ferrari and were like, on the restart, just let Perez go through, which is effectively the same thing as what happened. It's like, we won't investigate it if you give him the place, which is exactly what happened with Verstappen and Hamilton. So I don't like Michael Massey's management generally, but I don't see a massive problem with what happened here.
Yeah, and it was a very difficult one, wasn't it? Because I think that the problem I had with it was actually just because of what happened afterwards, which is, of course, Ocon suddenly finds himself on pole.
Oh, yeah.
With no idea what he's doing there. And he's absolutely
having not stopped and
it.
started, where did he start? Like at 12th or something?
He was on the green at like 12th, didn't pit, and then suddenly he's just in the lead on fresh tyres out of nowhere. Max then takes the second restart on mediums, again, because he's worried about Hamilton jumping him, and then just absolutely sends it at turn 1.
That was a good restart. Come on.
I mean, again, it was just, we're having a crash or you're moving out of the way.
It was successful. He got the lead and no one crashed. What more could you
Well, Ocon and Hamilton crashed. Again, that was partly caused by Ocon just thinking Max wouldn't
Ocon
be...
just drove, yeah.
Ocon
was a bit naive there, but then he's never been in that situation, so you can understand why.
No, exactly, bless him. But, I mean, it was a brave move by Max, but 9 times out of 10, like, you're coming together with someone if you try and pull that off at turn 1.
Yeah, and maybe he got a bit lucky, but it worked, so he got away with it.
Yeah, and I think I would have probably been less happy if he'd just then gone on to win the race from that by itself. But yeah, I suppose I'll let him have that one. Obviously, a couple of laps later, Hamilton jumps Ocon rather unsurprisingly. Lap 36 then. So we had no racing for the first 10 laps. Nothing from like lap 18 to lap 36. I mean, you got a couple of bits and pieces, like I said. Sonoda and Seb came together. Kimi and Seb came together. Seb's been a lot of this weekend coming together with people.
Yeah, not great.
Not a lot. To be fair, neither of them were really his fault. The second one more than the first, but still. But yeah, we get to lap 36. Hamilton and Max have been doing what they've been doing all year, and that is just deciding they're going to romp away from the rest of the field.
Yeah, absolute class of the field every single time.
I think they've got like a 25-second lead over this point, as you've got Ocon, Ricciardo, and Bottas battling out in the battle of the number 2s for P3.
Ocon and Ricciardo getting ridiculously lucky on the red flag.
Yep. Yep, absolutely. But we come down towards turn 1. Hamilton's got the DRS on Max Verstappen. He gets completely past him in towards the first corner. Mashes on the brake pedal. Max kind of just doesn't.
It was very similar to what happened in Brazil. Apart from this time the FIA actually investigated it, which they should have done back then as well.
Yes.
But, I think... Obviously, I don't know. I'm not in Verstappen's head. But...
I know someone who is.
He looked like he was trying to slow it down.
I'm sorry. At that point, with how much overspeed he went into turn 1...
It was a bold move for sure, and it was obvious that only one car was going to get through the corner at the speed he had. But until he had that big oversteer, or like the back end stepped out.
Jamie, he didn't have enough. He had far too much speed to make the corner by himself.
I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen the onboards yet, obviously, but that might reveal something. But yeah, it was a typical Verstappen type move. Not really what you want to see, and not a great move. But
yeah,
while I do think Max should have driven better, it's, as I said before, the FIA have let him get away with that sort of thing this year already and for his whole career. So a racing driver is going to see the rules they have and take them as far as he can. And that's down to the FIA to enforce them better.
don't get me wrong, the FIA should be enforcing it better, but surely there's got to be some sort of moral compass. For me, they just came across, obviously, because Hamilton is completely in front of him by turn 1, isn't he? By the time Hamilton...
Or by... Yeah, at one point he was, but then by the actual...
For me, all it came across like was Max were seen him go past and gone, I'm just braking later than you. No matter where Lewis decided to brake, Max was just decided, I'm going to put the car on the inside again for turn 1.
Yeah.
And that is a dangerous mindset to have.
It is, for sure.
At the end of the day.
Like, I don't know where it came from, because obviously...
Because he's never been corrected on it.
No, but not just Verstappen, but F1 generally, because people say that, the young drivers coming through are all like this now. But there must have been a point where some of the older drivers started doing that to inspire the young drivers to do whatever they wanted. So what worries me is that in the
genuinely think a lot of it is Max and the younger drivers.
It could be, yeah, because I
think he's the one that is... I mean, obviously you've got the occasional, like, Maldonado Grosjean beforehand, but I think Max is probably the one
Max
that has
sent
brought this
waves
culture
into F1 when he came into. So, yeah. It is the drivers like Norris and Leclerc were coming through the juniors when Verstappen was in F1 already.
Yeah.
So, yeah, probably is. But what worries me is, like, eventually this sort of driving, unless the FIA clamp down on it, becomes a norm. And in the future, you've got the new set of drivers who are going to take it one step further again and just have plane crashes all the time.
The problem I have with it...
it's not sustainable at all.
Yeah, is...
Sorry?
The problem I have with it as well is if Hamilton went in with that exact same mindset, they would just come together every time. The fact Hamilton's having to jump out the way constantly...
And it'd be stupid. Yeah.
...isn't fair racing, is the problem I have with it. Like, it's not racing at that point, it's avoiding chaos and carnage.
Yeah.
And again, obviously, you can say Max is... Obviously, this is what he's been deemed to be okay in the past. Surely there's got to be a part of him that goes, that can't be right. I can't do that. You'd hope.
I think he's so focused on winning right now.
That's a very dangerous conscience to have, though, isn't it? That's what worries me. And I know I've said this to people before. I genuinely do worry sometimes when you watch Max like weekends like this, where he could seriously injure himself or someone else through. Again, like,
just
I know we've spoken
focus on winning.
But, I mean, we've spoken about it, like, at Monza, for example. If the halo wasn't there, that could have been carpets for Lewis Hamilton's career.
Yeah. You could have had, like, a spine fracture or something like that, like, literally, quite easily, or worse.
Yeah. Again, I know we said at the time, you don't really want to think about just how bad that could have been. And it is difficult, because we completely get this whole thing of, we've got to let them race, and they've got to race each other hard.
Yeah. And, like, drivers, certainly specific drivers, you look at people like Senna or Schumacher, they would try and win at whatever it costs. And they don't care about safety. They don't care about what they might lose. They're just so focused on winning. And I think while Hamilton has that same desire, he has a bit of sense as well.
Hamilton is, far more like... but this is what I've said is so interesting about this year. Hamilton might be Ayrton Senna's biggest fan, but he has ran quite possibly one of the most Alain Prost seasons I've ever seen.
Yeah, for sure.
In Formula 1.
He's been so calculated. Like, yeah. I don't know. It depends what your taste in drivers is. Like, most people like Senna and Hamilton, which is a bit juxtaposed, but then it's only been this year, really, that Hamilton started driving with his head.
Really?
But yeah, I don't know.
Would you argue that?
I think Hamilton's... I like that in a driver, that they'll take it to the limits. But I know that some people don't. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm interested to know why you don't think Hamilton's been calculated in the past. 2017,
I mean, he absolutely has, but it's only
2018, 2019.
17, I don't really count those as championships because he was at the fastest car.
What?
I mean, I count them as championships. No, I count them as championships, but they do. The ones where you don't have to really fight against someone that hard.
He got helped by the fact 7 Ferrari just completely had a meltdown.
Yeah.
But
like,
throughout the
you learn
first
a lot
half
more
of that year...
you learn a lot more about a driver when they're fighting really hard for a championship right to the end. Like
fighting more on the back foot.
So much, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's obviously... And again, I think we can both agree, as they've said time and time again this year, isn't it? When Hamilton... If there's one driver you're going to back when they're forced right to the corner, it's Hamilton.
Oh, yeah. Hamilton's so good when he's under pressure. Like,
Like, again,
he's got the
I
experience
can't
to
remember
go with
which
it as well.
podcast I said it in, but I know I said a few weeks back, didn't I? Hamilton needs that from behind championship. It's like the one way he hasn't won.
And to be fair, I mean, speaking to a guy, a friend of mine, who says like, oh, every sport needs like, for any sports person's like career, they need the first one they miss out on. So because like when you look back on Verstappen's career, eventually, if he does miss out on this one, like it will make it like a better story almost. So he's kind of hoping that
the story arc. God, you are all for Netflix, aren't you?
Literally. I mean, FIA are at the minute as well. So.
Yes, yeah. But, I mean, we probably should get back to the actual race then, because we haven't even got to
that was the key
most
point.
controversial bit of, obviously, all of that. So, from what I've gathered, Jamie, and correct me if I'm wrong then, so Max cuts turn 1, holds on to the lead. Obviously, Mercedes go to the FIA and obviously go, he's done this. We saw it in Formula 2 on, 2 or 3 occasions, wasn't it? If someone cuts turn 1, they either have to let the car behind back or they get a 5-second penalty.
Yeah.
From what I gathered, obviously Michael Massey goes back to Red Bull and tells them, right, you need to let Lewis back through. He then goes to Mercedes and says the same thing. And as Massey is telling Mercedes, Max then decides that's when he's letting Lewis through. And obviously this is where it gets a bit controversial because, of course, we've had, countless VSCs up to this point, haven't we? We've had, 3 or 4 VSCs just sporadically throughout the stint. For debris, for incidents, for all this, that, and the other.
There wasn't a VSC that close to this incident happening.
About 5 or 6 laps beforehand, I think.
Yeah, but
Hamilton
that's
only got
close.
It's
not like it just ended.
No. But Hamilton only got close again because of one of the VSC timings. Got within the 1 second, didn't he, because of one of the VSC timings. And this is just where obviously it just became a bit of a farcical event, wasn't it? Unfortunately.
Yeah, completely.
So
it was all good for the drama, but it was a bit of a joke.
Yeah.
And I think both drivers can take some responsibility. I don't know if you agree.
I'm going to be... I think I might surprise you here in saying that I can completely understand why both of them did what they did in that situation.
Yeah, but neither of them are innocent, I don't think.
Not entirely, no.
No.
I think the thing for me was, obviously, they've just had all these VSCs. Hamilton hasn't been told what's going on yet. For him, and I think it's very easy to say you wouldn't do this in the same situation, but when you're that focused on what's going on in a race, you do not want to pick up a stupid penalty for overtaking someone under a VSC, because if that happened in a VSC, Hamilton had gone past him and then let him back through, Red Bull would have gone full Karen Horner on the FIA.
You can't just make up a VSC. There wasn't a VSC.
No, but what I'm saying is Hamilton didn't know Max was going to slow down there. So surely for him, you're thinking, Red Bull haven't had a mechanical failure all year. You don't know what he's doing. You don't want to overtake him until you know what's going on.
I think the main thing in Hamilton's head was I don't want to overtake him before the DRS detection point.
That as well. Yeah, I think once he sort of started to work out what was going on, and then, of course, Max brake checks him. Which at the time I didn't think was what happened, but obviously the FIA have confirmed.
The FIA have seen the data and everything.
Yeah, it confirmed that Max then did brake aggressively later.
It wasn't like an intentional. I'm going to take his wing off.
I don't think that was. Yeah, I think that was you're overtaking me before the DRS zone.
Yeah,
which in itself generates a completely whole new issue, because how on earth are we in a situation now where you can let someone through like this just to be able to retake the position, which he then did twice more anyway.
Yeah, or once more, wasn't it? Or
twice more, I think, including
he
that
tried it
one.
a second time, and then Hamilton just ran him off, didn't he?
No, I think he tried it a third time, and Hamilton just ran him off.
Oh, maybe only 2 were in the highlights. I didn't actually see it. But
I think.
Yeah, because... Obviously, the FIA think Max is at fault. I think they sort of just gave a penalty for, like, a combination of all the driving standards he had during the race, almost.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I was quite surprised that was a 10-second penalty, I'll be honest, when I saw it. Obviously, looking at everything they've said, I can understand why. But I think if they're trying to throw the book at him, they've done it in completely the wrong way there. I think they've tried to give him a penalty uncontroversially. It's just not taught him anything.
Yeah. When I first saw that clip, actually, like, I saw it, I was following on Twitter and everything, but after I saw it, like, the actual clip, like, Verstappen's letting Hamilton through, he's lifting off, it was like a solid 5 seconds of lifting, and Hamilton's refusing to go past, and then Verstappen brakes, and that's when it goes wrong. I mean, obviously it's all what ifs, but say Red Bull did have a mechanical failure and Verstappen was slowing because his gearbox had gone. Why is Hamilton just sitting behind him? That it's clearly he knows what's going on and knows that he doesn't want to get the DRS, but
that's what I don't think Hamilton had realised for a lot of that, what was happening. Because you think, if the car in front of you's got a mechanical failure, well, you're going to overtake him anyway. You've got 30 seconds to the cars behind. If he gets a mechanical failure, you lose 10 seconds, you get past him and you win.
Yeah.
It was
they both knew what was going on. They were both, it was very, farcical, pretty much.
Yeah.
I'm amazed that there wasn't as, how little damage there was to both cars, actually.
Yeah. I thought that was game over for Hamilton at the time.
Yeah, it looked like complete game over. It looked like a big crash. But
yeah. Somehow the wing
luckily for both of them, they carried on.
Yeah. So, like we said, though, obviously... So Max obviously breaks him and then just romps off again immediately. He's got about a 2-second lead, doesn't he? Until he's told by the FIA to let Hamilton through again. Does so.
Well, they also give him a penalty, which I didn't
They gave him a penalty after the first one.
On the highlights, it was the same point.
As the second one happens again, I'm pretty certain.
Maybe they missed one out or something. But anyway, he let him through.
Yep. And the FIA gave him...
And then, as he was letting him through for jumping the chicane... At the first, on lap 36 it was or whatever, he gets a penalty for the same thing that he's letting him through for.
It's taken him 6
FIA
laps
made it pretty
to let him
clear.
through.
They made it pretty clear that it was one or the other. You either let him through or you get a penalty, and then they just give him both.
The problem was there, wasn't it? Was they decided he was getting a penalty because it's taken him 10 minutes to let Lewis pass, and they know exactly what he's trying to do with it anyway. He's trying just to let him pass, just to re-jump him, which again,
and he did exactly that, and sent it at the last quarter. It got to the DRS and drove off.
The only example of recent times is Spa-08, and I know you've said before that penalty was fair for Hamilton. So do you believe Max should have got a 25-second penalty for that incident?
Well, I believe a penalty was fair in Spa-08. I also think 25 seconds was massively overkill.
His tune now.
I'm not changing at all. I think that at the time, which is 13 years ago, the smallest penalty they could give was a drive-through, which equated to 25 seconds. The rules are different now. Had that happened now, yes, it's a 5-second penalty, which is what they gave.
Of course, then lap 43, Hamilton is already now aware of what Max is trying to do just over and over, so basically just forces him off the road. Obviously, gets a black and white flag because at this point, it's just becoming a farcical event, and you worry one of them.
Showing flags.
You just worry if he does that, Max is going to go from 2 seconds back and just do something crazy.
Just don't break
towards turn 1. But then it kind of just obviously, I don't know what happened to Max. Oh, his tyres died, didn't they, after that?
His tyre, they tried doing 40 laps on mediums or something.
It kind of saved any complete last moments carnage between the two of them. To be honest, it was probably a blessing that Max's tyres did go off. Obviously, got the 5-second penalty, then was confirmed after the race he got another 10 seconds. So he was never going to beat Hamilton then after all that. Hamilton then, of course, just comes home, takes the win, fastest lap as you would. Esteban Ocon and Valtteri Bottas have a brilliant battle right at the end, which of course we don't get to see. I can understand why people were frustrated with that, but always remember we watched the lead across the line in the sport. That's just what always happens.
That's literally... And actually, I watched the onboard afterwards. Bottas had some okay racecraft for once, fair play.
I mean, he's up against an Alpine.
Yeah, he's up against a much
He should have been past him lap 22.
Yeah. But the little switchback in the last quarter I did quite like. And
yes,
he's done that sort of move before with Stroll, hasn't he? So that was complete slipstream in Baku 17.
Bottas crushing young French-speaking people's dreams. I don't think Stroll speaks French, but I was reaching there.
I'm just doing this to part of my Bottas propaganda before next year.
Okay, so this is part of your Bottas propaganda lineup, is it? But I mean, it was just a frustrating weekend from start to finish, wasn't it? As a fan of the sport. It was
just a bit, I mean, the neutrals would have loved it, but that's the problem, really. They just love a crash.
Yeah, some neutrals.
In terms of an actual F1 fan, it was a bit of a joke. But we move. Abu Dhabi should be better because it's not a street track.
Should it, though?
Well, you'd hope so. It'll be more normal, you think?
I'm not convinced, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I know I've said it before in recent weeks, but I'm I think the problem is what needs to happen. I know I tweeted this out last night. Michael Massey, first of all, needs to regain some control over the sport he's meant to sort out. Second of all, he needs to go to both Lewis and Max this week, whether it's together or by themselves, and go, look, if there's contact between you two in the final race, we are more than happy to either offer a points deduction or a straight out disqualification from the championship.
It would be that, yeah. They can't just make up rules like they're going to disqualify.
I think if they make it clear beforehand, I think they're within their rights.
I don't think they're within their rights to deduct points myself, but they are within their rights to qualify for championships. That was because of a new team. Oh no, it wasn't.
No, that was like 4 years ago, Jamie.
That was like 4. Yeah.
Yeah, we were there that weekend actually.
Yeah, I was.
We both were.
The first ever race of, what was it? Force India Racing Point, or the other way around?
Yeah, Racing Point.
Second row lockout.
Yep. Yeah.
But it wouldn't surprise me if something bad happens. I mean, what I'm actually expecting is a huge anticlimax because it is Formula 1, not Hollywood. So.
I really don't. The thing is, I'm expecting, and again, part of this is probably optimism from my side. I'm expecting Mercedes to have a quicker car. Final race weekend
I'm
of the year.
expecting that as well.
But I'm also expecting Max to do just about anything he can.
Yeah.
And whether that's within the rules or not.
We said this, like, Mercedes have a global brand to protect.
Yes.
Whereas Red Bull have always, their global brand is sort of pushing the limits and being that.
Red Bull was originally, like, their whole marketing back when they first started, because they got banned from Germany very quickly, was just no, genuinely. Obviously, their marketing back in like the late 80s was just about being like a renegade and all this, that, and the other, being a rule breaker.
So it kind of suits their role very well that they have to push the boundaries of the rules.
Yeah.
So
Mercedes are trying to sell cars.
What I said to Matt before, like, if Mercedes or Hamilton, is ahead of Verstappen in qualifying and has a quicker car, Verstappen will try whatever he can to win. I feel like if we get a weekend like Austria where the Red Bull is just way quicker, I think Mercedes would just have to accept that. Obviously, try everything they can with strategy and stuff. Yeah. But it's not like Hamilton's going to torpedo him.
No.
I don't think.
Let's be fair. When we talk about points, like deductions and disqualifications, really we both mean Max, don't we?
Yeah.
It's not within Hamilton's nature to.
I like to think he's got the crumb of respect for the sport and for himself that he wouldn't just do that. But you don't know, do you?
No, he doesn't fill you with confidence that way, does he? Ethically. No. But again, this is a problem with the whole way Max has been brought up through the ranks, though, isn't it?
Yeah, you can blame Jos, I think.
You blame Jos and you blame Red Bull. Like, sometimes you look at some of the stuff they say, it's dangerous. The sort of ideology.
It's so bad.
Genuinely worrying at times.
Yeah.
Like them talking. Like Christian Horner last night saying Hamilton does exactly what Max does. You're like, no, he doesn't. Where are you getting this idea from?
Yeah, maybe he did 15 years ago.
Christian Horner must only think Hamilton drove in Formula 1 in like 2011 and raced an entire field of Felipe Massas. Like, that, I can admit, was Hamilton's dark age in Formula 1, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's the only season he's been beaten by a teammate, isn't it? Oh, and 16, of course.
No. Yeah.
But
I think so.
Yeah, it's just worrying, isn't it, at times? And I know, obviously, I've said it earlier on today, I just worry that at some point Max will either seriously hurt himself or someone else.
Yeah.
Like, again...
I feel like the FIA have no bottle, so up until that happens, they won't do anything.
No, exactly. The FIA tend to react rather than act on too many things as well. But, yeah, I mean, Jeddah as a track, though, was...
It was fun, but it was horrific at the same time.
But part of that was due to the nature of the frontrunners being the way they were.
No, I think even in the F2, it was better than we thought it would be.
F2 is always carnage, though.
F2's always,
what you probably should do is just not race F2 here. Is probably the more sensible thing. But really, I mean, the only sort of crash by itself was Mick. A couple of other people had spins and things, didn't they? And then the other crash was just caused by the top two being...
I hate to agree with Twitter stans, but what they were saying pre-weekend, it does open itself up to a lot of bad crashes.
Potentially,
like the Perez one could have been way worse. Like when he was sideways against the track.
But it's a pretty low-speed part of the circuit.
Yeah, but still, there's like tyre smoke everywhere.
Yeah.
You're side on, like anything could happen.
And I think that you probably need to reprofile some of the corners, wouldn't you? I think.
Yeah.
Just to make it a bit better, but
it was amazing to watch. Like quali was so hype.
Quali was brilliant to watch right until the very end. Even those final runs were brilliant.
Class.
Yeah, the camera work this weekend was brilliant. And this is something that Liberty have really focused on in the past, isn't it? They've really focused on trying to make the cars look dramatic as well. Like the way they position the cameras and the microphones.
Like F1's just so marketable now, like compared to 2017, 16 time. Like,
yeah, exactly.
I guess the nature of the championship has helped a lot because it's been very easy to get behind.
Yeah, this season has been Liberty Media's wettest of dreams. But still, yeah. I mean, one more race to go. I just hope with all the hype we've had all year, it doesn't just become stupid. I mean, it got pretty stupid this weekend.
It was very stupid, yes.
But
I think this time last week, even before Sunday, I was going to be really upset if Hamilton won a title. I feel like now, because of the way Max is driven, I'm like, he can kind of blame himself if he loses it now.
Yeah.
Up until that point, I was putting it on luck because of Hungary and Baku. But
can I ask you one thing as well, then, Jamie?
Okay.
We said after Brazil about Max Verstappen, obviously, again, talking about how he's not feeling the pressure, and you were very much with him at the time, saying you genuinely don't believe he did.
No,
now, I at the time said I think he's talking about it a bit too much for it to be believable.
Yeah.
Are you?
No, I think up until turn 27 of Q3, I was very much of that opinion. So, yeah, I'll take the L on that one. Maybe he is.
But I'm not trying to say like you were wrong or anything. But do you genuinely just don't believe that's the case anymore? That he is actually feeling the pressure, and we're starting to see cracks in what has been.
No, I think I
was
wrong.
Max Verstappen.
I think they knew, or they could tell. At that point, I was like, he was probably quite high in confidence before the weekend. Because obviously, Hamilton had the penalty, got disqualified from quali and everything. It's like, one more. Basically, at that point, it was beat Hamilton once in the last 4 races.
Yeah, and it's
I've won
done.
the title.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and at that point, he's really confident. No pressure. Like, just beat him once. That's easy when Hamilton's starting last, surely. Obviously, we know what happened. And I think But now, obviously, it's come down to the last race, and it's exactly what Liberty want with tied on points. It's ridiculous. It's so scripted.
The second time ever in Formula One. Only the other time was 1974 between Emerson Fittipaldi and Claire Regazzoni.
I'm surprised no one talks about 1974 because that's pretty rare.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But yeah, I mean, again, part of that is obviously the fact that Hamilton has been good throughout a lot of the year, but like we've seen before, he comes back after the summer break, he gets pushed into a corner, and he just comes back kicking like nothing else.
And I'm surprised we've seen since, well, maybe the whole turbo hybrid really, definitely since 2017, like Red Bull tend to
come on strong,
improve their car a lot at the end,
yeah,
and they sort of just haven't. I mean, I guess Verstappen won 2 in a row at Mexico and USA, which was pretty good. But then since then, they've really dropped the ball. They feel like they've not been the strongest in any of the races, really.
I think that's partly down to, again, I read it. I can't remember if we mentioned this last week, but I read a really interesting article online talking about Bottas between, I think it was Turkey, Kota, and was there a race between them? Russia? Or was that before Turkey?
Russia was before Turkey.
How a lot of people reckon they ran the spicy engine there on Bottas's car in those 3 Grand Prix, because Mercedes now have basically done exactly the same thing with Hamilton late on in the year.
Yeah, because they kept giving Bottas engine penalties, and they
yes,
trying out this OP engine.
Yes, yeah, and I think again it's just that difference between Mercedes are here and they wrap up championship after championship after championship. Red Bull have done it before, don't get me wrong,
when they've had the fastest car generally.
But they've... but then again, Mercedes have had the fastest car in a lot of situations.
Same situation, yeah.
Red Bull have had the fastest car in arguably all 4 seasons. 2010 definitely, 2011 definitely, 2013 definitely.
Yeah.
2012 for most of the year.
Definitely the most well-rounded car.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I mean, you could argue obviously McLaren had the fastest car that year, but it was useless. A bag of spanners.
Yeah, could do like 3 laps at a time.
Yeah, but you just can't help but feel like it's like a game of chess, isn't it? And you can't help but feel like Red Bull might be sat on one side of the table feeling all confident because they can see 4 moves ahead, and Mercedes is just sat there quietly looking across them like 6 moves ahead of the game, sort of thing.
Yeah.
I just feel at the moment, but
yeah, I feel like Hamilton's probably the favourite going to the last race.
I feel like if it was going to be a clean race, Hamilton, yeah, definitely the favourite. But I just have no optimism that that's going to be what happens.
It'll be interesting one way or the other.
Yeah, I just pray it's for the right reasons. But for the final time then, Jamie, in 2021, I never thought we'd get to this point. Top 3 predictions for Abu Dhabi.
See, I mean, we haven't... If there was actually anything on the line and this mattered, I would say what will likely happen, which is probably Hamilton, Verstappen, and then whoever's third. But because, yeah, I want it to happen, I'm going to say Verstappen's going to win. So, I mean, it would be funny if they're just both out and it's like Perez, Bottas, Leclerc or something. But I'll go Verstappen, Hamilton, Bottas.
Verstappen, Hamilton, Bottas, eh?
Yeah.
Oh, God, it's genuinely like now. I know I've like been cool throughout a lot of the season, but like genuinely this week is going to be like
stressful,
like squeaky bum time all week, isn't it? Hamilton, Bottas, Charles Leclerc.
Wow, you're going all out at the DNF.
I think Max is going to try something and it's going to backfire.
How would he end up out without Hamilton is what I don't get, because that's quite easy to get you both out.
Silverstone?
Unless you hit the wrong part of him, my friend.
Yeah.
We'll
or I reckon Max is going to get disqualified.
What, from the race and the championship?
Just from the race. I don't know. I don't know at this point, Jamie. I don't know.
It's, yeah.
Too
stressed. Let's just end the podcast.
Honestly, I don't want to think about it until Sunday. Like, it's so stressful at this point. And like, again,
this podcast will be spicy. One of us will just be winding up the other one way.
It's going to be, next week is just going to be horrendous. But make sure you're there for that. Let us know down in the comments below whether you believe it's going to be Max Verstappen or Lewis Hamilton that takes home the crown at the end of this campaign. But I know I've said it recently as well, a massive thank you for all the continued support, on the podcast. Jamie, it's been wonderful having you along for the ride throughout the entirety of this year.
Oh, I know, yeah.
I just want to say a massive thank you as well for all the continued support. We're almost at 25,000 subscribers now out of nowhere. You guys are just insane. So yeah, thank you all for all the continued love and support. Jamie and I have got a lot of stuff planned over the winter break as well, and obviously heading in towards the new year, so there definitely is going to be a lot more content from us. Formula 1 is not going away, and I'm sure no matter what happens in the final race of the year, there's going to be plenty to talk about on the off season. But Jamie, anything to add?
Good luck, Matt.
Yeah, best of luck, mate. I think may the best man win in the final race of the year.
And let that be Verstappen.
Well, let's wait and see. Let's wait and see. Again, you can't argue neither of them don't deserve it, like many people on Twitter will try to. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching. We'll be back next week for Abu Dhabi. My heart rate's getting up already now. You can tell F1 is just a horrible, horrible drug. But yeah, we will see you all next weekend where we review whatever happens in the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix.